2007, to conduct all business which will be properly brought before the body. First order of business will be our invocation by Commissioner Kelly, and then we'll be standing please for our pledge of allegiance.
Dear Lord, bless this day, bless our wonderful county of Lee and the great state of North Carolina. Thank you for the blanket of freedom our country provides us and the men and women in harm's way that provide that blanket. Please protect them and bring them home safely. In your name we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Stevens here. We had a presentation that we wanted to make to her. If she comes in later, well, we'll do that. But if she does not, then we will get the information to her. And the plaque that we were going to award to her for her past service. And we do appreciate the service that Ms. Stevens has rendered to our county, and she even went beyond that and served the state organization of county commissioners. Did an outstanding job. Now recognize Mark Clark, who will present the Employee of the Month.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Mark Clark with the Lee County General Services, and I'm on the Workplace Enhancement Committee. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Doris Powell to step forward. The Employee of the Month Selection Committee has chosen Mrs. Doris Powell as Employee of the Month for May 2007. Mrs. Powell has worked for Lee County for 27 years and is currently employed as a children's librarian with the Lee County Library. Mrs. Powell recognizes the importance of getting children interested in reading at an early age. This is evident in the pride she takes in keeping the library's children's area stocked with the most current and informative books and research materials designed specifically for juvenile reading. Mrs. Powell has also put a great deal of time and effort in the children's summer reading program and the library's outreach program, where she visits preschools and nurseries. Her efforts and courteous customer service have made her popular with both children and the parents. Mrs. Powell is recognized for her dedication and service to our community. She is truly an example of the best Lee County has to offer. Mrs. Powell and her husband Bob have a daughter, Anne. So at this time, the committee respectfully asks that you join us and award Mrs. Doris Powell Employee of the Month for May 2007.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, he said I could talk a little bit or not. I just want to say that if everybody had the job that I had for the past 27 years, they wouldn't mind coming to work here today.
Sharp, you come forward, please. I want to give you the Star Award. You can place on your desk or wherever you choose. Okay? And I also have some certificates here. One that says that you have a day off from Lee County with pay. I hope that you will present that to Mr. Mike. Also, I have a certificate from Papa John's Pizza, one from the Moody Gallery, and one from the Coca-Cola Company. Also, I have for you a plaque in Employee of the Month, May 2007. Lee County government recognizes Doris Powell for going above and beyond regular duties to be an outstanding employee. Signed by Lisa G. Minner, Interim County Manager, Robert H. Brown, Chairman. And I know that Doris deserves this. I've known her for a long time. We congratulate you. While I'm standing, I'll just remain standing. Back up a little bit. Ms. Stevens has arrived, and we call her forward at this time. We had you first on the agenda.
Traffic was bad.
But I know it's a long ways, but anyway, I've already expressed my appreciation for the service that you've rendered to our county as a county commissioner, going into 5 years. And you have been an outstanding representative of our county, not only locally, but also on the state level. And on the national too, by attending the conferences and so forth. It's always been kind of amazing to me in going to these conferences with Amy and some of the other board members that seemed like everybody knew Amy. She represented us real well. So Amy, if you'll come forward this time, I won't take this out, but I want to present you with this plaque, Amy L. Stevens, in grateful recognition for your leadership and service to the citizens of Lee County as County Commissioner and Vice Chairman, December 2002 to April 2007, Lee County Board of Commissioners. I also have a resolution, Lee County Board of Commissioners resolution, honoring former Commissioner Amy L. Stevens. Whereas Ms. Stevens was elected as a member of the Lee County Board of Commissioners in December of 2002, representing District 2. And whereas Ms. Stevens was elected Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners when she was sworn in for her second term of office in December of 2006. And whereas Ms. Stevens served in several leadership positions during her tenure, including being the county's representative on the Sand Hills Mental Health Board and co-chair of the Legislative Goals Committee of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And whereas Ms. Stevens has demonstrated a deep commitment to her job and to the citizens of Lee County, and whereas her years of service have been marked by her dedication to the best interests of the community, and she has worked consistently for the betterment of Lee County citizens. Now therefore be it resolved that the Lee County Board of Commissioners does hereby express its sincere appreciation to Amy Stevens for her distinguished service to the community and extends to her their best wishes in all her future endeavors. Presented this 7th day of May 2007, and Amy is signed by all of the commissioners. And also I have a gift from the commissioners for you. Okay. You have anything to say? If you do, you go back to the podium. Okay. And you take this box too. I got enough right now.
I just want to say, when I first decided to go in public office, my mother couldn't believe it because she knew how much I hated speaking in front of a group. So here I am. I think that serving in public office is one of the most satisfying, rewarding, and challenging things a person could ever do. And my desire would be that, every citizen could have the opportunity to do what we all enjoy. Because, naively, I thought I would come in, decisions would be black and white. I would know right off the bat what I'm going to do, what I'm going to, think. And what you find out is there's a lot of research to be done, a lot of hard work, and there are not 2 sides to every issue. There's more like 5. And, you just have to go on what, proceed the best that you can. And then, on top of that, you've got 6 other board members that are coming from different perspectives, and you've got to appreciate what they're bringing to the table. And, we have all been, I probably voted with everybody a number of times, but certainly against some people, well, probably all of us, several times as well. But one of the things I always loved about this board is that we left the boardroom and we were still friends. And there is not a commissioner around this table that I don't feel like I could have called if I needed something personally. And they'd have been there for me. So I appreciate that, and I hope you felt the same about me. Thank you.
Amy, just for 1 second. There at the meeting we had last week in Raleigh, I met with several of the folks that you served on many boards with, and they expressed to me their regret in seeing you leave the board, that you were positive, hardworking, and you really put a lot of effort into the things that you were working on and with. And they expressed to me that they appreciate all the hard work that you did for the state agency as well as this board. And that's coming from most of the ones that you had served with, especially Breeden Blackwell.
Time now to approve the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda from any of the commissioners? We hear a motion that the agenda be approved as it is printed.
Mr. Brown, this we have on the table here as far as financial policy resolution. That has to be inserted in here for exchange. The one that we have
The only change is the
was
signature.
the signature lines. Okay.
It's already in the pack.
Okay.
Any other questions? Your motion be approved. All those in favor of approving the agenda as it is printed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No, hold on a second, please. I was trying to find the one that you have for performance.
It's in here.
Mr. Chairman, that's an item that we discussed in finance and decided that we were going to do a workshop to cover that. And I'd like to see that removed for that purpose.
Okay, we've already approved the agenda, but you can make a motion to remove that.
I so move.
And so moved that that item be removed, and I believe it's item D under new business. And we will handle it at our workshop. All those in favor of removing this line item D, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. It is so ordered. Now I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor of approval of the...
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yes.
just one question,
All
and that pertains to item H, revision to Lee County personnel policy. I understand, I'm in agreement that those 4 positions do report to the board. My only question is, do we have a regular performance appraisal process for those? And
If we do, the board does that once a year.
okay, so the entire board will do it, and so the 4 individuals involved do know what criteria they're being appraised or being critiqued on, and,
Yes, ma'am.
okay,
And we have a meeting with them.
okay.
Any other questions? We already voted, didn't we? Motion been made to approve the consent agenda, say, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say no. It is so ordered. Next item on the agenda is public comments, and I believe we have some folks signed up. Jimmy Fraley. Mr. Fraley, you have 3 minutes.
I can say what I gotta say quicker than that this time.
Okay. Come on.
Jimmy Fraley, I live on Nicholson Road, and I'm here as an individual person, and I want to speak and give my part in on Kirk Smith. I think Kirk Smith would probably make us a doggone good county commissioner. And regardless of what the board, I know final say will come up to y'all, but at least give him a chance on the board, and if he don't do what's up to par, let the people decide that election time. But I am here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I believe Mr. Smith, Kurt Smith, signed up to make a statement. And I'll tell you, like I told Jimmy, you got 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
I'd like to thank the chairman for allowing me this moment. I wish to thank God for this opportunity. I'm so blessed to be a citizen of this great and free nation. I'm so blessed to have a very supportive family. I'm so blessed to have the nomination of the Lee County Republicans. And I'm so blessed to have many friends and supporters. I'm also very blessed to have an opposition whose attempted character assassination has steeled my resolve to serve my fellow citizens. I appreciate Chairman Brown for taking a few moments from your busy schedule to discuss my appointment. I thank Commissioners Kelly and Commissioner Shook for taking the time to vet questions of me and discovering that we have many of the same concerns for the citizens of Lee County. I appreciate the Sanford Herald for their editorial support. But I do find it incredible that members of this community would refuse to allow an opposing viewpoint on the Lee County Board of Commissioners, stating that I'm not progressive. My college professor at the University of Maryland said, and stated it many times, the difference between a politician and a statesman. A politician is concerned about the next election. A statesman is concerned about the next generation. I consider myself the latter. My philosophical principles of government are simply based on the Founding Fathers' intent. It was a system of limited government designed solely to protect life, liberty, and property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate your comments. Do we have anyone else, Madam Clerk? Okay. Move on to old business. We recognize Dr. Lynn Sadler for request from the Centennial Committee. Is Ms. Sadler here? Yeah, there you are. We were introduced to this at our last meeting, and it was tabled to this meeting, so Ms. Sadler, let you have the floor.
I call again upon you for support. We are seeking assistance with 3 of the very important items that remain in this year-long celebration of the centennial. We are in need of reprinting the booklet, the Lee County Calendar of Events. We would like very much to have this board help us advertise the centennial of Lee County by putting those centennial license plates that we inherited on the county vehicles. And we further ask your help in celebrating the official birthday of this county on July 2nd. Thank you for your consideration and reconsideration.
All right, do we hear a motion from the commission?
Was this referred to the Finance Committee? Did the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
We had a question, the same question we had when we left here the first time. How do you propose to distribute the new books?
At the July 2nd celebration.
I think initially we would, at least I was concerned that they may have gotten out before then, but they won't be distributed until July 2nd.
That is correct.
Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation or did the...
I'll have to get one.
Okay.
I move that we accept the request and honor at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and this includes the purchase of the tag for our county vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. Any discussion?
So is this for the full 11,000?
Yes, sir.
I guess my concern is that with the booklets, the majority of that is advertising. And I do not feel good spending taxpayer money advertising for specific businesses. I am comfortable with the party that you want to host because that will benefit all Lee County citizens, and I think they're all welcome and invited to come. So as far as, I'm not comfortable with the full 11,000. I did make a personal pledge for 5 of those license plates myself, so I will honor that pledge. But I'm not comfortable speaking for the other taxpayers and buying all those. But I will support the 5,000, whatever it was, for the party on July 2nd. I think that's fair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that one thing we didn't look at when this committee was formed, and that was to look at the possible funding then. And, you know, and knowing the work that has gone on so far as this year-long project, I hate that we failed that then, but this is a time now for Lee County to promote itself. In reference to what Ms. Shook just said, so far as the advertisements, anytime that you do a project like this, the way I see it, that is a little bit of seed money to get things going. They had to have something to get going, to get this project done and done on time. And like I said, if before at the last meeting, I think it's relevant that the county invest in itself. I feel strongly about that. That's just like if a business does not promote itself, it goes nowhere. And we've got something great here in Lee County. And I just want to say that I support the recommendation of the Finance Board Committee.
And we only have one centennial celebration.
True.
Next 100 years, I doubt that any of us will be here. So if we're gonna do anything, we need to do it now, at this time.
Chairman Brown,
Yes.
may I introduce and beg a moment for Clint Pickard, who is our fundraising chair.
Okay.
When I come back next year, this is the year. That's all I got to say.
And I would say that Mr. Pickard had a hand in selling some of the advertising that's in the booklet. And the booklet is a good record and a keepsake. Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to abstain from voting on this since I'm having to be on that committee, the Centennial Committee, if you don't mind.
All right, that'd be fine.
That's all I want to vote.
Yeah.
5 people there, y'all decide.
We appreciate the good work that Mr. Pascal and also our attorney, Mr. Hall, who is on that committee also. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
We're voting on the 11,000?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
All right. Vote is 4-1 with 1 abstention. Thank you, Ms. Sadler.
Thank you very much.
I would say that Sunday, a week ago, we were at the courthouse and the reinterment of Jacob Gaster. And Ms. Sadler did an outstanding job at organizing that. And, we had a good time, didn't we?
We do. Thank you.
Thank you. Going on to new business. The first item of business is to consider vacancy on the Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the board postpone any consideration at this time and perhaps reschedule this issue for June 4th meeting, as we're in the midst of going through several matters regarding the budget.
I see no reason why this needs to be postponed. I think this board can make the decision today. We've had enough time, we've heard from people, and I think we need to discuss this and vote on one way or the other today.
Well, I think you have a right to your opinion. I just feel that there's also a need for time for other people to give consideration of whether they're interested in this seat or not.
Why would other people need to, the protocol is that the prevailing party makes the recommendation. And in all the research I've done, I cannot find one county where the existing board did not accept the recommendation of the prevailing party. And the executive committee consists of the chairman, vice chairman, the officers, the precinct leaders, and I also have a list of 38 Republicans in District 2 who support that executive committee decision. So I would like to see it discussed and debated today. I see no reason why we need to do that. It's not a matter of someone else wants to know if they're interested. It's a matter of us following precedent and honoring the prevailing party's recommendation.
Well, there has been occasion when the board did not act. And I think Mr. Hall is aware of that situation when the replacement for Mr. Corbin Wicker came about. Is that correct, Mr. Hall?
Yes, and he went to the clerk of court.
So there has been before.
And I have concerns about that process. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ann Blakely. She's very professional, she's very competent, but I do not want to see her compromised by a political power struggle in having to name a replacement that gets to that. It's not fair to put her in that position, and it is not fair for the person she might appoint coming in here knowing they don't have the support of the prevailing party.
I do not believe that it will get to that point where Ms. Blakely will make the decision. I think this board will make the decision, and we will have to make it on June 4th because we only have 60 days from the effective date of Amy's resignation, which was April 15th.
Well, I would remind this board that the makeup of this board is 4 districts and at large. And I think it's very important to keep in perspective, you know, the fact that the voices of those in those districts need to be represented. And right now, I find it incredulous that maybe members of this board are trying to decide for the voters in District 2. I think it needs to be debated, and I think it can be done today.
Well, the debate could be held on June 4th as easily as it could be today.
Why do we have to postpone? I think as much as, you know, we're involved in the budget and other decisions, I think it's good to get somebody in and plunge them in to get involved in this and have their voice. Diversity of opinion is certainly needed on this board.
That's right.
And I would like to think that each of us is an independent.
I think we already have diversity of opinion on the topic.
Well, we could debate this among ourselves all day. The motion is on the floor to defer, and I will call for the vote
Defer to which meeting?
to June the 4th. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
Vote is 5-1. We will consider this on the June 4th meeting. Moving on to the next item of business, we have with us today Laura Eady from the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Census Department, and she has a request to appear before the board. You have in your packet some information concerning the census which our county is going to participate in. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Ms. Minter, for allowing me this opportunity to come and share with you some information that I'm pretty sure that most of you are quite familiar with. I just want to cover several things this morning, and it's only going to take me a few minutes to do this. As I sit here this morning, listening in your meeting, I have selected out of the 9 counties for Lee County to be my ideal county for what I like to see them happen with the census of the United States. The reason being is that I found that I've talked with quite a few of the people in this county, as well as quite a few people here in Sanford. I met with your superintendent, your housing authority director, your NAACP president, and other individuals throughout your community. And what they're telling me, and they let me know early on, that Mr. Don Kay with the Strategic Services Administrator challenged the census in 2000. And with that challenge, he actually won that challenge. You won that challenge because you were undercounted 2,000 people during the 2000 census. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid those challenges, but I share that story in other counties that I go to present to because that's a good thing. When people are not counted and you know that they're in your county, and it's depending on the funds, the $200 billion that is sent out from the federal government to throughout the United States. Of course, if you don't have an accurate count, which is what we do with the census, then you will be lack of funds. And of course, you challenged it and you did receive those funds, and that's what I understand from the information that I received from various people in your community. I am Laura McClellan, the partnership specialist, and my job is to create partnerships throughout these 9 counties during the dress rehearsal. You guys, I believe, received the information, the packets with about the dress rehearsal, and for anyone here that's interested in information about the dress rehearsal, I'd be glad to leave some brochures here. But there are several things that are happening with the dress rehearsal. This area was selected, the 9 counties out of Fayetteville was selected because of the diversity. Because of rural, metropolitan, Air Force Base, and Fort Bragg. And we have another county, just one county in California that was selected, and it's all metropolitan. So there's a lot of diversity here, and I am out of Charlotte, but I have traveled throughout every county that's involved in this decennial. And I mentioned that I am sharing what happened here in Lee County as far as the challenge is concerned. And because when I went to Broadway and the other little towns, they referred me back to Sanford. They said, we are working with the county in making sure that we get an accurate count. So they are quite familiar with, the awareness level is there about the importance of getting an accurate count. We used to form, in 2000, complete count committees in the cities. Based on what you have done here, I am recommending, because we are actually writing the blueprint for the partnership specialist for the decennial that will actually begin in 2008. I am recommending that we form the complete count committee at the county level. So I'm here to request that you partner with us and appoint a complete count committee for Lee County, because that's what we're asking the other counties to do. Because we feel as though if it works from the county, you can bring all the little towns together and make sure that we don't miss the numbers like we have done in the past. Right now, we are hiring people. We are hiring over 3,000 people in these 9 counties. We're actually employing 500 right now. We've started our first step of operation, which is canvassing the addresses everywhere. We've so far spent over $1 million in these areas. Between now and the end of 2008 for the dress rehearsal, you will have over 6,000 visitors that will be coming to your area, or you will be asked to come to Washington to talk with us and share with us information about the decennial. The main thing that I'm trying to do is to partner with individuals or entities or municipalities or counties to make people aware of the census. There are so many people that are still not aware of the fact that on April 1st, with the dress rehearsal, is Census Day 2008. April 1st, we'll be sending out forms. Well, we're sending them out a couple of weeks prior to that, but we'll be sending forms out. And this year, we're only using the short form. The short form is definitely for the count. The long forms are used the other 9 years as we go through to get additional information to determine the districts and the amount of money that will be sent in. But we need to know the count. And the short form is all that they will be receiving in the mail this time. The short form that has 10 questions, we ask all the individuals that receive this form to fill it out and send it back in. So the awareness level, Mr. McCormick has agreed to work with us in the schools. Ms. Spencer has agreed to work with us in the schools to get information out. The other superintendents in the other counties are working with us. They're doing telephone broadcasts, they're sending information at home with the kids and their report cards. And there are various creative ways that people are working with us. There are some cities and towns that are including information on the water bill and the light bill. So we are partnering in any way that we possibly can to make sure that people are aware of the fact that the Census Day is coming. We're also promoting safety and trust. We're trying to hire from within the areas. We're trying to hire from within the communities. We're trying to hire on the census tracts themselves, individuals that live in those communities, to make sure that when someone have to come to your door, that you trust that person, you feel safe about it. This year, we don't have to come into your house. And when we do the decennial, we won't have to come into your house. We're using a handheld computer that we can just input the information. It shouldn't take no more than 10 minutes for the information to be given to that census taker. And last but not least, I mentioned that the $200 billion that are allocated to go out to the communities throughout this United States does depend on the number of people that you actually have in your community. And I know that you are aware of that. I hope you don't mind me sharing the story about the challenge that you proposed to the census of the Department of Commerce and then when. But I do tell that story, and I think that you are doing a great job in making sure that people are aware of the fact that the decennial will be here. Some people will be contacted 3 times. We're doing the dress rehearsal, which is the last test before the decennial. And we have the American Community Survey, which is the long form that continues every year. And every 482 households would receive one of those long forms. If they don't fill that out and send it back in, someone will knock at their door. And the real decennial actually starts in December of 2008. But April 1st, 2010 is the census day that everybody all over the United States will receive that. Thanks again for this opportunity, Chair Brown, and I hope to get a meeting with you, Ms. Mentor, in reference to this, because we're trying to do all that we could possibly do and to share and make people aware of this opportunity to be counted.
Okay, you mentioned the committee. How many people do you consider to need to be on the committee? Now, Don Kovacic and Bob Bridwell are lead people, and I also have been to one meeting initially last year, I believe. Do we need more than 2?
2 meetings or 2 people?
No, two people.
How many on the committee?
On the committee. I would recommend that you have, from each community, you have a representative. Because there are areas that I know that I can't go into and areas that I'm not familiar with because there's so much rural. And we are trying right now to make sure that we can canvass all living quarters and addresses. But there may be some that we might miss. Now, in talking with Don, I think that he has a system that's so different. That's why I want our department to work with him, because what he's doing is what all the counties really need to do. And that's not saying anything negative about the other counties. It's just what I have heard and understood with my just being out here as a partnership specialist, but I'm a data specialist as well. So what he's doing and what he's sharing is something that we need to make sure that everybody else is aware of. So I think it would take more than the 2 people, because if you have the town manager in Broadway has referred me, he was quite familiar with the process, but he referred me back here as well. And everybody that I've talked with in the community know that Don has done so much work, but you know, he does what he does, but we want to make sure that every area, I mean, I've just been all over saying, but I know Lee County is not the largest county that we're dealing with, but it's large. And there are some areas that I've been in that I didn't know even existed. And I'm pretty sure Don probably has that information. But as far as representation, we need to make sure that the Hispanics, every Hispanic person is counted. We need to make sure that every African American is counted, and any other groups that are counted living in certain areas. So we want to make sure that all the towns and all communities are well represented on this committee. So I would say more than 2 people, but just make sure that you have diversity and make sure that the clergy, the school system, the Hispanic community is represented on the committee. And that's because they bring to the table information that everybody, we can't always have, we don't always get. Now, and Don has, I think, the development piece of it, and whenever some whenever any type of development is going on and the addresses are set up, he has that. But there may be some people living in some houses, even though their houses are there may be 4 or 5 people living there. We need somebody to bring to the table the numbers. We want the correct numbers, accurate numbers. So that's why it would probably require more than 2 people.
All right, in your meeting with the county manager, go over that and at least bring back a recommendation to the board. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Got
you.
one question.
Oh, okay.
For the employment part of it, and just call this number, and if so, where these brochures gonna be left?
Okay, I have some, and I can leave them any place out here. And I can leave other information as well. However, that 1-866 number that's on the brochures is the one number that you would call. We're working out of Fayetteville. When you call that number, you just give a zip code, and they will tell you when the next testing will be done in your area. So
I think I've seen at least one notice in the paper concerning employment with the, of course, it's temporary employment, but they're going to be working for a year or so.
Yeah, they could be working up to 4 years if they start working now and they like what they do. We have people that do hang in there, and our salary start at $11.50 an hour, and that's just for the enumerator. So, and we've hired supervisors from all over, and so far we've hired about 15 people out of Lee County, and we need to hire more.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, and I'm sure that maybe we'll be hearing more from you as the time goes along. How many, you say every 401 house?
It's 482 households who received a loan form, but that's going all the time. You know, we're sending those forms out. So if you get a loan form,
I'm aware of that, and that's the reason I asked you, because I got one.
you got one.
Let me ask one question. How accurate is the dress rehearsal in reference to the actual census?
Okay. In this case, I wish I could just cut through the chase and just be direct, but in this case, this is just a test.
Mm-hmm.
And because of BRAC, it's going to be completely different in 2010. It's going to be off because of BRAC. Because between now and 2010, the numbers are probably going to go up really high. So they're not going to be close together at all because of that. So in this case, in California may be different. They may have a more accurate count because they're only dealing with one county and they don't have the changes that are being made in these counties right now. So I hope that, I'm not trying to escape it, but I hope that answers.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate your good words about our employee, Don. He does do a great job. Thank you.
Did y'all ever send out money?
I'm pretty sure you got it.
Yeah. She didn't bring the check today. All right, now I'm going to recognize Marshall Downing, who's going to come present matters pertaining to the planning department.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Mr. Chairman Brown indicated, I am here to give you recommendations from the planning board regarding a couple items. First item in your packet is a recommendation regarding 2 amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. If you recall, we did have a public hearing on this back in April. First item is something that actually applied directly to the county. And again, I won't go into this in detail since we did talk about the public hearing, but essentially it was an amendment to allow for accessory buildings to be located on a separate parcel. And this would affect Lee County only. And again, I would give the example, if you had someone who had an enclosed storage building, they had a large lot in the county, they had their home on that same lot. However, they may own, let's say, 40 acres, they decide they want to subdivide that property. This ordinance would allow them to effectively subdivide that property and allow the accessory building to be on a separate lot from what's allowed in a home. We had a couple situations come up since the Unified Development Ordinance has been adopted, wherein that was the reality and they needed some relief from the current ordinance. We brought that item to the Joint Planning Commission. They looked upon it favorably. We also brought it to the Lee County Planning Board, and they gave you a recommendation for you to consider this unanimously. And Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and describe the second amendment as well. The second amendment actually is more applies to cities. It really wouldn't affect the county, but essentially, just for your knowledge, what we are proposing is that we remove the cluster option from the subdivision regulations. The reason for that is we want to replace that cluster option. For those of you who don't know what a cluster is, it's essentially an optional subdivision tool wherein if you have public utilities, typically city water and sewer, you can have smaller lots clustered together in tighter, smaller lots, wherein you may have topography issues or something like that that would create a non-traditional subdivision development. We are recommending that option be removed in favor of conditional zoning, and mainly because the conditional zoning tool, which has been used by the cities more so than the county in this situation, is a much better way of kind of legislative action and allows for much more public input in that process. And we feel it's just a better way to achieve the same results. Again, that item was also brought to the Joint Planning Commission for consideration. It was unanimously recommended to the Lee County Planning Board and all the other boards. Your county planning board looked at that, and they also recommended that you consider unanimously adopting that change as well. The draft ordinance is on page 100 of your packet for your consideration for both amendments. And I can
Has Broadway and the city of Sanford already acted on it?
The city has acted on it and approved both items. Broadway has had its public hearing, but they won't take final action on it until the end of this month.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of?
Just one, Marshall, the second amendment, that was the one that the city had the concern about so far as bringing in, the preliminary plats of what a developer wanted to do. And then once it came in, come back, they got the zoning changed. And then once that reducing the size of lots from 12,000 to 14,000 square foot down to 8 to 10.
That's
right. That's the one they were having a lot of problems with.
That's right. And just for clarification, what he's referring to is what had happened in the city of Sanford specifically is a developer would come in and get a rezoning from like R20 to R14, which translates from a 20,000 square foot lot to a 14,000 square foot lot. Under the cluster approach that's currently in the ordinance and what we're recommending to be removed, after that fact, after they went through that legislative process and that rezoning and the public notice, then they would come back under a technical review and ask for a cluster subdivision, which doesn't require a public hearing, it doesn't allow the public to interact with that. And then the cluster approach, they could reduce the lots from 14,000 to down to 10,000. And that created a lot of heartburn because the planning board and the council felt like, wait a minute, we approved you for 14,000 square foot lots, and then you're coming back and asking for 10. And basically the council couldn't prohibit that because they were meeting the ordinance.
Any other questions?
We can accept the recommendation.
Right, this also, the text amendment is 1 and 2, 3 and 4 under that line item C is the approval of preliminary plat for the Ridge at Carolina Trace and preliminary plat for the Chase subdivision off South Franklin Road. So actually we're voting on 4 things here.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, Ms. Thompson will be available if you do have questions in the plats as well.
Well, I haven't heard of any questions concerning the plat, so I believe we go ahead and have. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion that these 4 items be approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. So ordered. We appreciate it, Marty.
Thank you.
Recognize Mr. Reeves to bring forth a discussion reference real estate transfer tax.
I have no discussion, Mr. Chair. It's just a matter of information. The board to consider, that's all it is.
We don't have to act on anything.
Not at this time.
I hope everyone has read it, and there is quite a bit of stir throughout the state, really, concerning this. And I guess we'll just wait and see where it's headed before we take any action as a board. I did have received at least 2 resolutions from other counties that are endorsing this.
I have a few comments. I'm extremely disappointed in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and the approach they've taken to this. You read this resolution, it's because of this mandate, because of this mandate, because of this mandate, we have to find additional sources of revenue. Well, everybody should be binding together to reduce those mandates, that, the Medicaid mandates and whatever. And I'm extremely disappointed in the policy brief they put out. All 100 counties are not the same. You take a look at the counties they highlighted in that policy brief, they're pretty much all coastal counties. And a lot of those counties have lands that either the state or the federal government have removed from their taxable base. You look at Camden County, it's pretty much open space there. So every county is really different. And I think before this board ever considers voting on this, we need to hear from our Home Builders Association, we need to hear from our Board of Realtors, and we need to hear from homeowners. Because I did some calculations, and this is not a good deal for homeowners. And in Lee County, for the last 12 months, there were 400 and some houses, current existing houses that closed, only 100 and some new construction. So I think our situation here in Lee County is not what it is in other counties. So we need to really, before we ever consider acting on this, do our homework and hear from the people involved, because it's going to affect them. And I, for one, don't think our citizens are currently undertaxed, and we need another source of revenue. So we need a lot of research there.
Shook, I'll say this, I was in Raleigh Wednesday for the legislative day, and we got hit in the face up there prior to going to see our representatives there in Raleigh, among other representatives that we have made contacts with over the years. And I mean getting hit by a $10,000 ad in the NNO from the Board of Realtors and the Home Builders Association. And they were blatant in what they were saying, that they were there before the county commissioners going up to seek relief from this Medicaid. The buttons that we wore stated 2 things: support growth and stop the bleeding. And the bleeding is coming from the Medicaid. And we have been on this for years, trying to get that relief. Supporting the growth would help that. We've got people coming in all around us, from the north, from the south, with BRAC. There has got to be something done. And in that $10,000 page ad, they boasted about being there before the county commissioners. After the day was done, there was a reception that I attended, and a numerous amount of commissioners, legislators, and senators came to that reception. And I talked to everyone that I saw that I had made contacts with over the years, and I expressed to them myself that we need the relief. We need a menu of options. And talking to Prior Gibson, the House Bill 1424, I believe it is, that's a bill that would help the counties. In the same time, I pulled one of the cards out of my pocket and gave to him, and he just happened to recognize his bill on that. And I told him, I said that I know that we were here 2 weeks after the Realtors and the Home Builders Association came up here. I didn't know they were, going up there. but they had an agenda. So what we were looking at was to let them know that we're there trying to keep taxes off the homeowner, landowners, and all this. And I also told each and every one of them that the thing about it is that I represent the same people as Senator Atwater and Representative Love, and right on down to the constituents that he works with for his own county. I said, for those that I'm working with, put you in office, and they can take you out. But I did stress that the menu of options is good for counties, and it does help. To me, it does help of keeping the burden of the tax off the homeowners and landowners. It needs to be shared. The 1 cent sales tax is another good thing. But everybody that comes into this county, sends their kids to schools, is a burden actually on the other taxpayers. It's got to be shared at some point in time.
And I think we need to look at the true demographics of our county. And I did a couple spreadsheets here. Number one is this, let's say, is a starter home. Original purchase price $150, selling price 2 years later $160. And so by the time you take out the real estate commission, the revenue stamps that go on the deed, the 1% land transfer tax, the deed prep, attorney closing fees, termite inspections, and others, this person was actually coming out with less money than the down payment they put on it. Now, my biggest concern are for people like my parents who have lived in their homes are probably now paid for, but have worked hard all their lives, don't have anything other than their Social Security retirement, maybe a little bit socked away. And so, let's say they get to a situation where they need to sell their home and move into assisted living. By the time you take a look at what they're paying for supplemental Medicare insurance, Medicare Part D, and the additional cost is going to be for them now in assisted living, where before, they had their homes. This is just not right. And too many people today, the only equity and savings they have is that which is in their home. So many people can't put money into savings accounts. And so what we're looking to do with this is, to rob them of the one chance that they are saving money at. So, as I said, this deserves a lot of debate. We need to have, I think, some town hall sessions where we hear all sides of it. But from what I can see of this right now, it may be good for Wake County or Chatham County, but I do not see it being the best thing for Lee County. But we need to hear from everybody on this.
I was getting ready to say, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, matter of fact, while I was working the Pottery Festival. And you're going to get your chance. You're going to get your chance. Because what he's wanting to do is bring everybody together, sit down and talk about it, and find out how we can work together, whether involving Lee County, Sanford, Broadway, all the communities, bring everybody together and work for the same goal. That's in the works.
All right, we don't have anything to act on today.
Members of the board, let me remind you, if you look at the top of the document, it says Orange County Board of Commissioners. Doesn't say, the other one says simply NCACC draft resolution. And there was no recommendation and no need to beat up the document. And I'm in full agreement about any proposed tax ought to be openly debated with whomever wants to participate. But this is what I think. I think that we ought to at least be aware of what's floating out here. And if you don't want the information, don't read it. Nobody asked you to vote on it. It's a very simple process. Let's try and stay in touch with what's going on around us. That's all this is about.
My only point is that every county has its own needs.
That is always the case. I live in Lee County, and I make people plainly aware that when we talk about any legislation, I live in Lee County. This is where I pay my taxes, and these are the people that I represent and want to support. So, but I listen to them. I listen to them.
And my point is that the counties that have a lot of wetlands, a lot of federal lands that the county cannot tax, that's a different scenario than what we've got here.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, and our finance committee, I believe,
Yes, sir.
keep us up to date on that
Yes, sir.
proposal. Revision to Lee County Finance Policy, Commissioner Reeves.
Let's see, if you look on page of your agenda 126, in an effort to stabilize the county tax rate, all grant-funded positions will be reviewed annually to verify continuation of funding. This simply means, as opposed to trying to avoid adding on to government, that when a position that we feel is shared with grant money, when that position no longer receives grant money, it be eliminated unless they find some other resources. In other words, if you're not careful, you allow a person to come in at a 50-50. They get a grant that pays half of their salaries. They come on board. If you're not paying attention, 2 years down the road when the grant's over with, they're still on board and you're now subsidizing it with 100% of the taxpayer money. This is just something we need to keep track of, and making it part of the policy is the best way to do that.
Right, and the Finance Committee felt like that we really didn't have any way of doing that.
Correct.
We came up with a revision to our financial policy, which is going to enable us to do that, and I think it pretty well spells out that a grant position, once the grant runs out, we're not obligated to fund that position. That's exactly what it's saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. Your motion that this be approved.
So moved.
Been moved. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say I wholeheartedly support this, so it's a surprise.
Well,
No, I'm not surprised about that one. I knew that one was good.
we're trying to keep government from upset. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad to see everybody smiling. All those in favor of the motion to approve this change to our financial policy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Madam Clerk, unanimous vote, 6.
You probably get the front page covered on that vote.
Well, he's writing as quick as he can. All right, moving on to the next item, which is a big item, and you have a book in front of you with our proposed budget. And I recognize Ms. Minner, we're not going to go into too much of a discussion about the budget itself. Some of you just received a copy of it this morning. We'll have a work session. I believe our work session is scheduled for next Monday, and we will discuss that in just a few minutes about what time we're going to do it. Ms. Minner.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to present to you this morning the proposed budget for fiscal year 2007-2008. This budget has been developed to advance Lee County's mission through vision and leadership, setting the standard for professional local government. 2 years ago, you faced a very enormous decision when you had to decide to raise taxes by 18%. This year, you face an equally difficult decision, and this is a revaluation year. Many people will ask you to consider a revenue-neutral rate. As you will see shortly, this budget does not recommend a revenue-neutral rate. Just to bring you up to date on the revaluation, our total tax base increase in this budget is 14.4%. Growth from new construction, personal property, and motor vehicles is a net of 2.4% of that growth. And I will say that personal property is down from the previous year. Okay, so that growth is mostly coming from your new construction and additional motor vehicles. The revaluation of real property is netted at approximately 12.4%. The base figure we are using has an amount set aside for the appeals process. So that has been taken into account. Revenue neutral rate calculated based on this information is 71 cents. Let's move ahead. In general fund summary, the total tax base for this year is 4,510 million, approximately. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 4.51 billion, it's big numbers, so, compared to 3.94 from last year. The tax rate proposed in this budget is 75 cents. This rate allows you, as you will see, for investment in Lee County's employees, information technology, public safety, and education. For the last few years, you have made great strides in continuing to promote Lee County's future. If we want to continue that process, proactive decisions must be made rather than reactive decisions that ultimately cost the taxpayers of Lee County more money. And hopefully we won't have to see major peaks. I will say that this proposed rate does not set for 4 years. That is one policy that was basically set aside by the Finance Committee, and also in doing this budget. There are so many bills, as you were just talking about, the real estate transfer tax and several other bills for sales tax, etc., that have been introduced that can affect our budget so tremendously that at this point in time, it was decided not to try to set a 4-year tax rate.
We also took the appropriate action in the Finance Committee to allow ourselves to admit policy this year, trying to set a 4-year rate. There are too many variables sitting out here that could impact us one way or another, so we chose not to try to stick to the policy.
We're hoping we can reduce from 75 cents. Some of those things are approved, or at least hopefully that's accepted.
Yeah, we know that it'll take another year before we know what's out there, what's really going to work for us.
Tax revenue proposed is $32.8 million. 1 penny this coming year will bring in $436,725. The sales tax revenue, which is our second largest source of revenue, is projected to be at $10.7 million. We did project that at a 3% growth. And our total budget for the coming year is $62.6 million versus $58.1 million this current year. Where does our money come from? I realize those numbers are hard to read. Our largest, obviously, revenue sources are ad valorem property taxes, which make up 54% of our revenue sources. 17 cents comes from sales taxes. The next largest percentage is 14%, and that's from restricted intergovernmental, which we have very little control. That is your money that's your grants, your funding, state and federal funding for mostly for your human service areas, social services, health, youth and adult, senior services, etc. Those, obviously, the largest source that you control is your ad valorem property tax. Even the sales tax, unless you get legislative approval, you cannot adjust. Also included is the fund balance appropriation this year, which is at 3%. Efforts have been made in this budget to reduce our reliance on fund balance. We ended fund balance at June 30th, 2006 at 16.7%. This current year, we are anticipating using only $175,000 of our fund balance. So we are anticipating leaving the year at 16.6%. Based on the numbers proposed in this budget, it is proposed that we will still be very close to your minimum threshold of 14% at the end of the coming year. That is twofold: one, the proposed use of fund balance, and the increase in expenditures. So while we've tried to reduce our reliance on it, it's still you're getting caught because our budget is growing. So we have to face the reality that we have to deal with our reserves. In the past 4 years, since the last rebound revenue neutral rate was set 4 years ago as our tax rate, we have struggled to fund our capital needs. We have been funding those through fund balance appropriation in our budgets. While we have luckily enough not had to deplete our fund balance as much as we've anticipated, this year's proposed budget is trying to reduce that. There are major capital investments that are being funded out of operating. In the past few years, we've been buying our vehicles for the Sheriff's Department and other routine capital expenditures potentially out of fund balance. This budget proposes moving purchase of vehicles, non-routine purchase of, routine purchases of vehicles back to fund balance. There is actually $758,515 of capital expenditures being funded out of the operating budget. The detailed list of items being funded out of fund balance can be found on pages 37 and 38 of your document. Where does our money go? As you can see here, if you can read it, approximately 29.21% of our money goes to human services functions. The next largest percentage is education at 28.36%. And if you actually take the debt service over there and divide it up, education would be our largest percentage of our budget. Okay. So,
Does that include both public schools and CCCs?
yes, they are lumped together here. And of course, the largest portion of that does go to the Lee County school system.
You want to, at some point, just in parentheses or something, separate those two numbers so that we know clearly.
Excuse me.
You can do that for our work session.
Mandated services expenditures also makes up a very large portion of our budget. Mandated services in this year's budget account for 79.5% of our budget, or $49.8 million of the $62 million budget. Items included in that are, for example, our sheriff, maternal health programs, Medicaid, and debt service. A complete listing of the mandated and non-mandated can be found on pages 35 and 36 of your document. Discretionary spending or non-mandated services make up 20.5%. Items there would be human resources, extension, youth services, parks and recreation.
What page you say they were on, Lisa?
Pages 35 and 36 of your document. General fund expenditures for the coming year. Major increases, 7.13% increase is budgeted for the Board of Education and current expense only. There's a correction here. There's a 4.0% net increase in the Board of Education capital expenditures. I apologize for missing that. This budget, as I said earlier, will demonstrate that we are making large investments in education, information technology, and public safety, as that is shown here. And the reason I say a 4% net increase in capital expenditures is we are trying to use lottery proceeds and public school building capital fund money to help out with the capital. As I'll go into more detail later. We do have a 2.5% employee COLA budgeted, which is based on your financial policies. We use a standard CPI index as of the end of December to determine that. Also included, though, is a 43% increase in our workman's comp again this year. That amounts to $224,028 for the coming year. While steps we have taken over the past year have reduced our experience modifications and experience factors, the association has made an adjustment in their rates per classification employee to be in line with the rate bureau, and thus we are experiencing a large increase. I'm working with Joyce McGehee and Mark III to look into investigating the possibility of becoming self-funded for our workman's comp. However, to do that, we have to establish reserves. So for this year at least, and probably for the next couple of years, we would still have to set the money aside as though we were with our carrier. But long term, I think we would see a savings. So we may be doing that instead of signing the contract with the association, but we'll be coming back to you with more information on that.
We would, if we went to the self-funding, we would still have a threshold and a policy, a catastrophic policy that would cover the amount above, say, $50,000.
Yes, sir.
On one claim.
Right.
And this is something that the city of Sanford had just adopted, I think, last week before last. The very same thing.
And the association has offered us several different plans where we could go to a much larger deductible. But I'm not pleased with the reduction in our premium versus what we're having to say we will pick up. Thus, we've decided to look into our own self-funding. We would still use the same vendor that the association is using for administration and handling of our claims. But we would go out and purchase a catastrophic policy to cover us in over a certain amount. But we would still need to set aside the full amount this year into a fund. to make sure we have enough for reserves over the next few years and keep that funded. Also included is our 12% increase in health insurance costs that you discussed at your last meeting when we switched over to Blue Cross Blue Shield. There were 18 requested positions in this year's budget. 6 of those positions have been recommended for funding, and I will go through those as we hit the different areas that they are in. This budget includes $3,079,515 in Medicaid expenses. We'll discuss that in a little bit more detail later. And this budget, per your policy, financial policies that you reaffirmed today, does include an appropriation to capital reserve of $626,000, which is 1% of your general fund expenditures for the coming year. Specifically in general government, there is a 1.24% increase over the fiscal year 2006-2007, which is a nominal increase considering the items that we are proposing for inclusion in the general government fund. First of all, is an IT support analyst. This, of course, this position that has been requested for a couple of years. Our IT staff, with the onset of use of PCs more and more, have increased dramatically their responsibility. The number of computers, it's noted in the budget document, number of computers per analyst that have to be maintained, and it's just become out of hand for them. So we have included funding for that position. Other IT initiatives that are included, now all these are not necessarily budgeted in IT. They may be spread amongst various departments. First of all, we are recommending that we start the process of moving over to a voice over IP system and a unified messaging system. Mr. John has made those recommendations, and we will potentially save money in the long run by the switch. We need our current phone messaging system or voicemail system is out of date and is out of maintenance. And we can actually switch over to this new system cheaper than it would cost us to upgrade the current system and allow us to move ahead with technology. Okay. He has also requested and proposed that we move to a storage area network for our storage. Currently we do our backups. I'm sorry.
Excuse me one second.
Yes.
I was actually looking at unified messaging system. Is that abbreviation of messaging or something else?
Oh, that's a typo.
Okay.
I apologize. It was probably about 12:30 last night when I typed that, so that's a typo. I apologize. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, that's the pretty good signal.
That should be messaging.
We might be having some problems.
It's probably one of those times when I fell asleep. Sorry. Storage area network. We currently do our backups via tape drives, and it's my understanding that we oftentimes are not getting good backups of our data, and it's just because our data has become so large that is an antiquated method of backing up our data. What is being recommended is an off-site storage area network, and that way our information, our data would be off-site, so if something happened in this building, we would not be at risk of losing all of our data. And we do store, sorry, did you question?
I have one question when you finish.
Okay, we do store a lot of data, our financial data, our tax data, information from the Sheriff's Department, mug shots, evidence, etc., that could be very detrimental if we were to lose our information. It could take weeks to restore under our current methods. So,
Would this include health department, DSS, and all that?
Yes, it would include backup of everybody's data.
And would that have any impact on the file cabinet situations in those areas now?
The next document would.
All right.
The next system would, eventually. Okay. The next item, and let me back up, the voice over IP system and the unified messaging system is being split between the IT department and social services. Social services will actually pick up 37% of that cost, and that way they can get reimbursement of up to about 50% of that cost back to us. So that helps reduce our cost in that. And individual departments some individual departments are budgeting phones for the new system this year. Some will put those in their budget for next year. It's actually a 2-year process before we would be able to totally take out our current PBX system, is what Mr. John has proposed. The Laserfish document imaging system is a system that's being recommended for HR and social services, but what we would actually be purchasing would be the backbone of the system that would eventually allow for expansion to all departments. That is a system that will allow us to scan records, exactly what Mr. Reeves was referring to, and eventually reduce our paper storage and our need for storage space. It's basically, Mr. John picked 2 departments to be kind of the kickoff departments. HR first, because of all the records personnel records that can be scanned and stored easier, and to help reduce the additional filing cabinets that have to be purchased in rooms for them.
Let me ask Mr. Cole if he has any idea how much actual square footage we would gain when this takes place in those filing cabinets. Or have you looked at that?
I don't know the actual, I can get that to you. I know health department's got, I think, 2 rooms that they're actually using for file storage, but I don't think they're going to be included in this one here.
Not in the first phase.
Okay. HR does not have any really file storage that's taking up office space. DSS does.
Well, the reason I'm interested in knowing is because one of the things we're also faced with right now is space needs. So it would seem to me that we would look at that, and if we could clear up 2 rooms or more rooms, then obviously we want to go that route, whether it's the right time or not. We want to look at
It will alleviate some of the our storage into office space.
I will say that before we can destroy any of the records that we do scan, we do have to get permission from the state to do that. And the company that we are looking to contract with has experience in doing that and will be assisting us in getting the proper documentation to make sure we can do that.
Yeah, I'd start to say, there are some documents that you have to maintain or keep forever, the hard copy, and some for 5 years, and some for 7 years, and whatever. So we're never going to be able to clear up all of our storage space because of that requirement.
Guess we can move it offsite.
Social Services was also chosen to participate because of the amount of documents that could be shared, so that if a person comes in and hits 3 or 4 different programs, that all 3 or 4 different programs, like they currently do, make copies of the same document. Where if this way, if a person comes in at the front desk, they scan a document, their driver's license, etc., one time, and then each program can go in by person and access that data instead of making multiple copies and stuff. So Mr. John had talked to those 2 departments. I have sat in on the presentation of this. It looks very promising. I'm anxious for finance to be able to get involved also. And HR, social services, but also from the HR perspective, we will be looking at scanners for health and possibly even Parks and Rec because of the paper that they handle themselves for the HR department. So everything can be scanned into one file per employee.
One of my doctors uses that process, and he just typically does.
So, and for the cost, it's a reasonable price. The costs are actually listed in your document. Human Services. We'll skip. I have public safety next, I thought. If it disappeared, I'll come back to it and cover it without a slide. I apologize. Human Services makes up 29.2% of our total general fund budget. It's only an increasing 0.21% from the current year. But part of that increase, or lack of increase, is being attributed to the environmental health fee proposed increase. On page 5 of your document, you will see a list of fees that the Health Board and the Health Director have proposed for environmental health. They have asked, as you remember, you raised some fees last year for on-site septic system work and for some food and lodging. Those were raised to be able to allow us to bring salaries up to levels where we could hopefully fill positions in environmental health. This year, they are proposing an additional rate increase to bring those up to recovery rates, which is in line with what you approved last year for the inspection fees. So they are bringing those up in line. Social Services, Medicaid, as I pointed out, is up to $3,079,515, which is 7.5 cents of your tax rate going to Medicaid alone. As we mentioned earlier, there are several bills being considered. One, which is House Bill 1424, which had all House of Representatives people sign off on it. that would freeze us at the 2005, 2006 level. And that would potentially save us $595,000. But as you all know, and received notice last week, that does not appear to be it's going to fly, that they are looking at another potential like they did this year, just funding a cap, which is very disappointing. We would like to get out of business, but based on the lack of knowledge, we are budgeting our full amount for next year. We have yet to see any county receive their portion of the pool that was set aside for this year once they reach their cap. I think, I'm talking to Ms. Potts, what they're looking at is trying to figure out how they will split it, because that was one of our concerns last year. Some of the poorer or harder hit counties hit their cap early on, and then we hit ours in May. We may not have any money left for us to participate in. So apparently the state has realized that, and they're trying to hold off until figure out an equitable distribution for everybody. So we'll continue to monitor that, and depending on what we can find out, we will make adjustments as we move ahead if y'all so choose. There are 3 positions requested in Human Services. 2 of those are recommended: a social worker in the Child Protective Services Unit that will also assist in foster care, and an income maintenance worker in adult Medicaid. If you want to look at your slides for public safety and economic and physical development, I'll go over those even though they're not up here. Public safety is anticipated to increase 8.47% increase over fiscal year 2006-2007. We recognize that Lee County is growing and that the growth brings needs in many areas, especially in areas such as public safety. The request for public safety this year, the Sheriff's Department request alone was $3,939,000. It's a $661,240 increase over the current year. 5 new positions were requested, 4 of which were patrol deputies and a crime scene investigator. The request also not only included personnel with equipment necessary to outfit those personnel, replacement of outdated service weapons, and replacement of at least 16 mobile data terminals in their vehicles. What is recommended is 2 patrol deputies, the necessary equipment to outfit those. We did recommend the replacement of the service weapons. With regards to the mobile data terminals, instead of replacing all 16 at one time, I'm recommending that they start a replacement policy much like the county operates on for their PCs. And so I've only recommended funding 8 of those this year so that you don't end up every so many years having to replace all 16. So if we start a policy this year to replace 8, then they can do the other 8 next year and then work out a rotational schedule for that. The total recommended increase for the Sheriff's Department is $353,575. The jail is, let me back up to Human Services, where the Health Department is concerned. Part of the reason they're not growing also is the reflection that Health Department has been decreased because of jail health being transferred back to the jail for responsibility since you've entered the contract with Southern Health Partners. So the increase you're seeing in jail is reflective of that. Okay, so that's part of the increase that you're seeing reflected in public safety. Economic and physical development, you have $324,000 included for the planning and community development contract. There is a decrease in the incentive payments for EDC. We are down to $838,040. While we're picking up several new incentives this year, one of the large incentives to WIFE was completed this fiscal year. So those are listed in your book and on the slides. Also in economic physical development is cooperative extension, which I requested a nutrition program assistant position. That position is recommended because they have requested a grant from Smart Start to fund that program. If the grant is not received, the position will not be filled. Education, the total education budget, including Lee County School System, is $17,767,400. This is a 15.58% increase over fiscal year 2007 and 2008. Oh, excuse me, 2006, 2007. Represents 28.4% of the general fund budget and 37 cents of your tax levy. And that's net of the monies that we're looking at using. For Lee County School System, current expense budget recommended is $13,569,437. That's $903,270 more than fiscal year 2006-2007. They actually requested over 2.2 million in new money. 1 million of that approximately was for a continuation budget to cover their current salary increases, health insurance increases, etc. 1.3 million was for expansion items, which includes the proposed increase in supplements. Capital outlay recommended is $2,242,887. Their total requested was $3,051,769. Much of that is for potential start of renovation and repairs at the high school and technology enhancements to their current systems. I have reviewed the request, analyzed, spoke with the Department of Public Instruction and tried to determine exactly what projects can be paid for from lottery proceeds and from the Public School Building Capital Fund money. Based on discussions with them and looking at anticipated lottery proceeds and the proposed revenues from the Public School Building Capital Fund money, I've determined that approximately $1.4 million of those funds can be used to fund the capital budget. Outside that, I proposed a 4% increase in the county's participation for capital. That's coming up with a $2,242,000. It is recommended that before any projects are began, that we have the schools get Department of Public Instruction's approval so that we know what projects can be funded to make sure that we don't exceed our contribution, the county's contribution.
So you're saying there that 1.4 million will come from the lottery proceeds in the state, and the 1.4, the top one, is additional that taxpayers are?
No, that is net, that's included in there. So the net is what would come the additional on the taxpayers.
So the 2.2 million is the additional for the taxpayers?
No. The net between the 1,472,000 and the 1,441,000 is the new money. Okay.
Okay.
The net between the 2.2 and the 1.4 would be the total for the county. It's about
Did you state that net amount?
Yes, it is. And I don't remember it off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's okay.
Now, what will happen with the lottery proceeds and Public School Building Capital Fund, if you will go back to some of the debt financing you've seen and proposals we've laid out, we've said we'd use one or the other for pay-as-you-go type projects, and we would use the other one for debt service. What we're going to end up doing is using a blend. The technology projects cannot be funded from lottery proceeds. Public School Building Capital Fund money can be used for technology. So the money that would have been used for debt service in this budget from the Public School Building Capital Fund money has been replaced by lottery proceeds while we switch the Public School Building Capital Fund monies to technology projects. And we do have enough debt that's been issued since the lottery, since the date proposed in the lottery to use that money. Okay.
The lottery proceeds, is that quarterly, or how is that paid out?
It's supposedly quarterly.
Supposedly.
Yeah. We're still waiting to see if it stays on par.
Have we received any of those proceeds?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How much?
I don't remember the total number off the top of my head, but I will have it for you at the work session.
Okay, okay, good enough.
This does not use every bit of it. We would still have some based on my estimates, and I've been very conservative in the estimates.
Well, and I think the state the lottery hadn't been in effect long enough for them to develop a rhythm about getting the money back to the counties. But hopefully in the future, we'll be able to anticipate when we're going to get those funds.
Those funds are setting, just like our Public School Building Capital Fund's money in Raleigh, and they do earn interest for us. So while our money is sitting there before we draw it down, it is earning interest. And usually at a better rate than, as good or better rate than what we can get. For Central Carolina Community College, the current expense funding is proposed to be $1.9 million for the coming year. That's $71,000 more than in the current year, which is a 3.8% increase. and we have proposed $51,000 in capital outlay. That $51,000 is to cover the items that you heard about when you went and visited the Jonesboro site. It is the tractor for mowing vehicles that they need to keep up their maintenance system. They did also request $410,000 in capital funding based on the capital plan that was adopted last April. That plan proposed 2 projects in 2007, 2008, one being the parking lot addition at the community college and a truck entrance at the Civic Center. Those are not recommended for funding at this time. Debt service, which was another large portion of your budget, is at $7,177,200 for the coming year. $5 million of that is related to the Lee County School System, which is 69.5% of your debt. This year, I am proposing that, according to your financing plan, that we take $440,000 from the Capital Reserve Fund to cover your debt service. That was the plan when we issued the last debt, is that we would use, we were putting the money aside in capital reserve each year, and we would use that to avoid tax increases related to debt. Okay?
Lisa, does that include payments on the new middle school? When will those payments start?
This year, the peak you see there for this coming year is reflective of the first interest payment due on the debt that was issued in December. So yes, the debt for the COPs that were issued at $28 million is included in this. Okay. That's that peak. You've got $1.5 million increase in debt. Most of that's reflected.
You're taking $440,000 out the general capital reserve fund. We're putting something back in there. We're putting more back.
Right. You're putting $626,000 in and taking $440,000 out this year.
Right. And that one reason for the additional money in the capital reserve is because of the fact we'll have more coming out next fiscal year than we will this coming fiscal year because of the middle school. Right? Okay.
And the debt financing plan is based on a certain, certain portion of the taxes being assigned to the debt fund. In the past, it's been 10.5 cents. That was reflected down based on the rebound, dropped to about 9.5 cents is the equivalent rate to fund your debt service. And that was accounted for. So we dropped that to 9.5, included your sales tax money, your public school building capital fund money / lottery, and then figured the net, and that's coming from your capital reserve.
So we are headed in the right direction.
We're trying. We are trying. Other items of interest, the Fire District Fund, as you know, the Fire Advisory Board, they now review the Fire District budgets, and hopefully we'll have a report from them by the first part of June with regards to the Fire District rates. Solid Waste Fund, there is a proposed rate increase in the Solid Waste Fund of $1.50 for disposal and $1.50 for collection, $3 overall. That is necessary due to increased tipping fees, increased maintenance costs. A lot of our dozers and stuff are getting older and requiring quite a bit of maintenance. We also, of course, they're also affected by the workers' comp increase and the COLA increase. The next thing on your agenda will be starting your work sessions. The budget preparation documents originally proposed May 14th as the first work session. That you need to set a time for that if that date is acceptable. Public hearing will be held May 21st at the in courtroom number 4 at the courthouse, and then we'll run that notice. Probably we'll run it on Wednesday. Tentative schedule is for a budget adoption on June 4th. Copies of the budget are going to the library when Mike goes back to work after listening to this. They will also be a copy filed in the clerk's office. And we will, just like this past year, have our budget posted on our website by the end of the day. If all goes well. But it is, last year's is out there and this year's proposed will be put out there. Okay?
All right. That's a good report. Appreciate it.
For you set those dates. I would like to.
Gives us some meat to go into these things and break them down. I propose that we have our budget work session on May 14th. That'd be a week from today, and that we start it at 9 o'clock. Is that satisfactory with all of the
Don't work for me, I got a morning engagement.
Okay, what time would work for you?
It's just a workshop, I'd rather have a late afternoon meeting.
Probably likely we'll have more than one work session, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, we'll make that decision after we have one of the first.
Well, one of the things that's gonna help us make that decision, I was gonna ask the manager to take a look at the revenue neutral, which would be 71 cents. If we went to revenue neutral, what we would have to eliminate. So it's gonna show you pretty much what we have been, some of us have been talking about all along. We're not in the fiscal condition that we ought to be. And for that reason, the things that we have in there, which being proposed at 75 cents, are not extravagance, but things that we have to have just to keep our head above water. And at some point in time, this board is going to have to take a more serious approach to where you want to be over the next 4 years. I'm sorry to say that. And you won't be there at revenue neutral. 2 years ago, when we went up, 12 cents? I sat here and begged the previous board, listen, that's not a wise thing to do. Going revenue neutral is not wise. You've got debt that you know you've got to pay for. You can try and be political and look great if you want to, but you'll pay the price. Same thing for this board, same thing for this period. There's debt that we know that we have is coming whether you want it or not. And it has to be paid. So some tough decisions will have to be made financially.
With the proposed sales tax increase that we're trying to get through, that doesn't cover just new construction. Doesn't that also written to help with existing debt?
I believe it is.
That's one of those balls up in the air, we just don't know.
Right.
You know, if
Now
we
the-
get the sales tax, we're good to go for 10 years.
Well, the state is still talking about the referendum for schools, and I asked the question and was told that if that passes, our share of that would be approximately $14 million, which is not going to help that much, but we'll take it. But anyway, we could not use that money for debt that we have now.
Right.
So,
Could it be used for reconstruction?
yeah, it can be used for renovation, but not to apply to debt service.
The schools are also looking into the QSAP bonds and probably can bring something to you at the next meeting.
Okay, back to the budget work session. 3 o'clock work for you, Mr. Reeves?
3 o'clock.
All right, we'll set it for 3 o'clock, May the 14th. Is that
Is there anybody else
satisfactory?
I have something, I think something at the Ag Center is having.
That's right.
Right,
That's
that's
for
at 5,
the
that's at
people.
5:30.
5:30.
So don't we need longer than a couple hours for a work session? I don't know, I've never attended one.
Well, I can tell you I don't. I can tell you I don't. And you won't either. You won't either. The numbers, truthfully, and I'm not being facetious, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, they're very, very clear. The tough decision may very well be how much in check you want to keep everything for this fiscal year, and whether or not you want to try and prepare to take on those.
Well, I know that I will go through that, and I'll have lots of questions. I probably pepper you with more questions than anybody does, so, I will do that, but I just, anticipate maybe longer than an hour or whatever it works.
Well, 2 hours.
That's 2.5
2.5 hours, you can get deep into it. From the
See how it
past,
goes if we feel we need another one after that. So you're saying from.
we can do another one.
So 3 to 5.
3 to 5, right. And that'll give time to get out to the,
That is open to the public, right?
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Brown, I would like to point out to you in your books, behind the general fund and the other fund tabs, we have broken down the budget by department. We have tried to add this year full-time equivalent information as far as staffing levels go per department. And you will see a section added called significant changes. So we tried to go through the budgets and point out some different requests or things that were recommended per department to make it a little bit easier to provide you more information than what was provided last year. You will also see the performance measurement information included in those sections. I would like to take the time to acknowledge our department heads. They did an outstanding job in submitting their budgets. Most of them submitted reasonable requests and have put a lot of time and effort into their thoughts. Would like to compliment my staff. They have kept the ball rolling while I've worked diligently on this. Sherry Poindexter has done an outstanding job, having only been with us since February, and trying to grasp performance measurement and to put the back half of this document together. Also, Jill Gillian was here with us on Saturday, making sure the document was ready for you today. Marilyn McKinney also on the administrative staff has been outstanding support. And I also like to recognize you for your support and your ongoing planning. And you've got a long process ahead of you that I look forward to working with you on. If you come across questions and would like to have additional information at the work session, if you will contact me, I'll be glad to try to pull that information together for you for that meeting. And if it's timely enough, I'll try to get out to you in the Friday package.
Some of the page numbers are you confident that the pages are where they should be? It's just that different documents were pulled together and maybe somebody used a hard page number rather than a soft one? Specifically in general fund, the page numbers aren't. Let me get back to. It goes from page 61 to page 64, then back to 45, and then 46, and then 47.
Yours is evidently one that's out of order. If you will leave that one with me, I will try to give you one that looks like it's in order.
So you don't have to come in and say, we tricked you, get a new book.
Well, when I write down a page number, when I have a question on, I just want to make sure it's the page number.
The page numbers are hard-coded, so that...
I want her to be clear, that's you, not us. I want to hear that again.
I've never accused you of tricking me.
Anymore.
Okay.
Any questions at this time that I can possibly answer?
I would say that if you come across major questions that you have when you're going through this budget, to maybe facilitate things at our work session, please contact Ms. Minner or contact the chairman of the finance committee, Mr. Reeves. A lot of the questions that we may have, we can have answered before we get to the 14th. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you can come up and give us, you can come up and give us the manager's report now.
Actually, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
That wasn't it. Yes, sir.
All right, commissioner comments. Mr. Pascal asked permission to be excused to go to a memorial service, and so that's the reason he got up and left. He will be back, hopefully before 11:30. Ms. Shook, you have any comments?
One thing I want to pass some kudos on to Ryan Drone. A couple of weeks ago, he had sponsored a wireless meeting. And it was so great to see in one room officials from the city of Sanford, from fire, police, county people,
rescue,
all in one room, all excited about some of these wireless opportunities. And there was a lot of interest. The schools were there, and so I think the next step is, me and this company are going to be meeting with people to answer questions to see. So I just wanted to applaud him for taking the initiative on that. Another one also, I found out late Friday that we are having 2 interviews today, and I just would request in the future that maybe a little bit more advance notice, so that, I might have to call to find out whose people we were interviewing and whatever. So just a little more advance notice there. And I just want to state that I did meet with Bob Hughes last week because I had some questions on the Pentair initiative or incentives. And Bob and I had a good conversation. I do, Mr. Hoyle, want us to look a little bit more carefully at the wording of the contract because even though that contract specifically states the Nash Street property, it really can apply to other facilities according to Mr. Hughes. So I think that's one thing that maybe we need discussion on, and I'm just not comfortable with it being that vague. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kennedy.
I went to a meeting, it was actually an open house at the Helping Hands Clinic the other day. And I don't know if any of y'all ever, I really never knew what Helping Hands was before I went. And they provide medication and dental and doctor for people who just can't pay it. And I was amazed to see Miss Marilyn Green, who is a registered pharmacist and the executive director of this organization, how efficient they run, how caring they are, and the actual benefit that they provide the county, because these people are not being, this is all money from that they have raised and prescriptions that they've gotten the hospital to donate and the doctors to donate their samples. I was very impressed with their organization, and I told her, I said, please come before the board and let us, let everybody know more about your organization, because it provides Lee County with a very valuable service, and I was very proud. And it just was very heartwarming to see how much care was there. And I'm not talking about the physical care, I'm talking about the care that they were providing, mentally and physically.
Okay. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I do have two things I want to bring up. One, in the number of years that I've been on the board, this pertains to farming. Lee County has been without an agricultural agent for the last 2 years, I know. And we have tried to work with NC State to get an agricultural agent here in the county. And to that point, we have set aside monies, 45%, to go towards having NC State appoint an agent for Lee County. 55% of the cost would be their responsibility. That was their request. I have the numbers after attending a forum in Smithfield, at the Agricultural Center there in Smithfield last week, that Lee County is losing in agriculture approximately $4.5 to $5 million a year, if not more. And I'm going to ask this board to work in conjunction with me and the Agricultural Extension Service to send a letter to Raleigh, to NC State, requesting an agricultural agent for Lee County. I mean, this county has always been a productive farming community. That's its backbone. Always has been, probably always will be. We're looking at a lot right here in Lee County. Approximately 17 to 18% of things that go on in agriculture is through manufacturing, through crops and things of this nature, but the employment side is 17%. And in talking to the farmers every time I go out into the county, or whether it be to something like the Pottery Festival, they come to that. They support things like that. This is something we've got to look at, is we're losing. And we're losing in a big way. And I have the numbers here. I'll be glad to pass out to each of the commissioners, have a copy of it made, and let them look at it themselves. But today I'm just asking for one thing, is a letter of support to go to the North Carolina State for an agricultural agent. I have letters here from 2005 from Farm Bureau, from different agencies, from the farming community, livestock production, forestry, everything you can think of that contains anything so far as farming from then. And they are now updating those letters, because I do understand that they have new leaders, new board chairs, presidents of different associations. So those are being drawn up as we speak.
Didn't the 45% reimbursed to us?
Right.
So it'd be a net zero for us.
But it is a huge benefit to Lee County to have an agricultural agent. I can remember back Mr. John Hall, Norman Brickhouse, Ken Harmon, and I know there's countless others that have been here in the county as a county agent to help farmers. You look at the tobacco situation as it is right now. They need help in diversifying to other things that is productive. And I think it's important that this board supports a letter to NC State. And I'd ask that letter be drawn up. I'll work with the board, the clerk, and the different levels there with the farming community and the corporate extension service.
Carol, you making a motion?
Yes, sir, I'll make that a motion.
All right, the motion been made that we draft a letter to NC State University requesting a full-time farm agent for Lee County.
And this isn't gonna cost us a thing.
No, it won't cost. We will upfront provide 45%, and then NC State reimburses that 45% back to us. How much?
We will pay 45%.
Oh, okay.
They pay 55. And we have been budgeting the 45 for the last couple of years.
I believe we have a couple of clerks that are on our payroll out there, and they do reimburse us for it. All right, I agree with Mr. Lamont, and I have met with Susan Conlon concerning this matter. And motion on the floor, or is there any discussion further? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. So ordered.
I'll leave, Mr. Brown, I'll leave a copy of this in the clerk's office, and anyone can pick it up and review it, get a copy of it if they need it.
Mr. Reeves.
Just have two things. Do you know if, do we ever hear anything from Mike Watson on the issue in Harmon County, the lawsuit that was prompted against the, against
The state.
mental health state, but we're part of that catch and basin. We heard anything?
I have not seen a reply to that.
All right.
Madam Clerk, we haven't received anything. Do you want to remind them?
Yes.
Okay.
Never saw anything. The second thing is, I received a copy of Mr. Shook's request to the Board of Education. You plan to address this on our workshop, during our work workshop, or you just giving it to us for information, or?
What was that? Is that out with the Boney and Associates?
Correct.
I think during the workshop would
Okay.
be a good time to do.
All right.
Yeah. Piggybacking on Mr. Reeves' request, is there anything we get from the Mental Health Association that shows us the number of substance abuse cases that are treated in Lee County on an annual basis, or where would we get that? Where could I get that information?
Well, right now, we're without a representative on that board, and I do not know about the information that Ms. Stevens had, but we can try to contact her and see if she can turn that over to us, so if we appoint another representative and waiting on filling this chair before we do that, then we can do that. That'd be okay?
You can make that request. They're supposed to provide it on a quarterly basis anyway, but you can make the request. It should
Just
have.
call the Sand Hills Mental Health directly and
Well, when we inquire about the lawsuit, you can also inquire about what you
You want to
need.
include that?
Yes. I do.
Who's calling about that? Just again, we'll call about
Where
that.
can you go?
We're right on that. Then we'll have to paper trail. Still a phone call.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do want, there was one thing I did leave off a while ago, and that was the second part I was gonna ask. While seeing our representatives there in Raleigh last Wednesday, they did ask that we send them the information, like the amount of increase that we're gonna have, in the Medicaid, the pertinent numbers that's going to affect us this coming budget year. I told them I would get with the interim manager, finance director, and get the information to them pertaining to some of these bills.
Okay. Mr. Hall, do you have anything? Ms. Manners, do you have anything else?
I do have one request. I'm sure I will be sending out the recommended budgets to the departments today and tomorrow. Some of them I'm sure are probably not going to want to address the board. Do you have a particular way in which you would wish to handle them? Do you want to wait for a public hearing? Do you want to have a work session, or?
Let's see how many we have.
What the other budgets?
Yes, sir.
I would ask that it be done at our workshop.
Yeah.
While we're there.
But if we have every department coming at one time,
Most of them are checking out about that. That's just.
all right, I have something that I want to make mention of. In your consent agenda, you approved the proclamation for Older Americans Month, May of 2007, and I want to read that proclamation. Whereas Lee County is home to more than 9,000 citizens 60 years of age or older, and whereas the older citizens of Lee County represent a dramatic trend in our nation's demographic makeup, and whereas older Americans are diverse, respected citizens who continue to contribute to our nation's social and economic well-being, and whereas a growing number of baby boomers are rapidly becoming older citizens, and the number of individuals providing care to family members and friends is expanding significantly, and whereas the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead require us to think differently about health and long-term care, and work together to rebalance and to modernize our current system so that we may adequately plan for and address the needs of current and future generations. And whereas older persons are entitled to live lives of dignity and independence through streamlined access to information and community services, information about cost-effective prevention practices and activities that will improve health and the quality of life and provide innovative, affordable options of care and support that will provide an array of choices about how and where to live. Now therefore, we, the Lee County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 2007 as Older Americans Month and urge all citizens to honor older adults, those who care for them. Lee County citizens are urged to promote and participate in activities that contribute to helping older Americans make choices for a healthy and rewarding future. Dated this 7th day of May 2007, signed by the chairman and the clerk. So we therefore proclaim this month as Older Americans Month, of which I am one. Okay, if there's nothing else, we have a closed session scheduled for 11:30. So do I hear a motion that we go into closed session? So that we will meet in the small conference room. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.